In this video, we're going over the bottom-up array approach of House Robber 2. Let's go over the thought process. So let's convert the top-down memorization approach to a bottom-up approach. Now, where do we start? In the memorization approach, we have cash, money with index I. This means we can create an array, money, to keep track of the maximum amount of money for all values of I. Now let's go over the pseudocode. So let's validate the input parameter. If nums is empty, there are no houses, so return 0. If nums.length is equal to 1, this means there's only one house, so we will just take the money in the one house. Now we're going to create a method to find the maximum amount of money. This is because we have two possible starting positions at index 0 or at index 1. So we do not want to have duplicate code, so we're going to create a method to find the maximum amount of money. Now, what parameters do we need? We need start, the starting index. We can either start with 0 or 1, and then the ending index. This is because if we rob the first house, we are not allowed to rob the last house. So we want to keep track the last house that we can rob. And nums is the input array. Now in the method, we're going to create an array, money, to keep track of the money for all values of I. Then we're going to iterate through from end to start, denoted as I. Now for each of the index I, we have two choices. We can rob the current house and jump to I plus 2, or we just skip the current house and we want to pick the larger value between the two choices. So I want to set money I to the larger value between robbing the current house. If we rob the current house, our index, we will skip the next house, so our next index is I plus 2, incremented by the current money in the current house, and also skipping the current house. If we skip the current house, we're just going to move to index I plus 1, and then want to set money I to the larger value between the two choices. Then we can return money start, the maximum amount of money if we start at start index. Now we're going to invoke the method for index 0. So starts is 0, and the end is nums.length minus 2, because we are not allowed to rob the last house. So the last house we can rob is the house right before the last house. And then we're going to invoke the method for index 1. This is the second house. This means we can rob the last house. So the last house we can rob is located at nums.length minus 1. So to get M1, to get M2, and then want to return the larger value between the two choices. Now let's go over the time and space complexity. For the time complexity, we'll get 2n. Go O of n, where n is the length of the input array. This is because of two loops, two for loops. And our space complexity we get also 2n. This is because of our money array. Now let's go over the code. So we first create our method to find the maximum amount of money, starting index, ending index, the input array nums. We're going to create an array, money. Actually, before this, let's go back to the original method first. So let's validate the input parameter. If nums.length is equal to 0, there are no houses, so we can return 0. If nums.length is equal to 1, there's only one house, so we can return the money in the first house. Then we want to return the maximum amount of money between starting robbing from the first house or start robbing from the second house. So let's rob the first house. And then the last house we can go to is nums.length -2. Or if we start robbing from the second house, and so the last house we can get to is nums.length -1. And then we want to return the larger value between the two choices, and then we can create our method. We create array money, new. We create a money array with the length of nums.length +2. This is because at each of the iteration, we want to find the maximum amount of money at I +2, and I +2 may be out of bound. Then we'll iterate from start to end, from end to starts, denoted as I. At each of the houses, the maximum amount of money we can get is the larger value between robbing the current house or skipping the current house. So if we rob the current house, is that money I +2 plus the amount of money at the current house, and also skipping the current house, which is just jumping our index to I +1. And then we want to pick the larger value between the two choices. Then we can return money start, the maximum amount of money we start at this index. Let me know if any questions in the comment section below.